Hey everyone, so today's video is going to be my labor and delivery story with my youngest son Liam, who is going to be 1 in less than a week, in about 5 days. I can't believe it, time's gone by so fast. He's actually laying on my lap right now, breastfeeding. We're still going strong at almost 12 months, but see his foot kicking. When you're a mom, you gotta multitask, right? So anyways, he's not feeling well today. He has strep throat. I don't know. He must have got it from daycare. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my labor and delivery story with him. I wrote down a few notes, but I'm trying to do this from memory. I do have a blog post on my blog, www.motherofboys.org. And I wrote it, a while ago when it was still more fresh in my memory about my labor and delivery story, but I'm just gonna go over it as I remember. So I was 38 weeks and 5 days or 4 days, I believe. Actually, at this point, I was 38 weeks and 3 days. And I was going in for my 38-week appointment I saw the PA at my doctor's office, and my blood pressure was a little bit high. So she said, you know what, I'm just gonna send you over to labor and delivery so that you can get some blood work done. Just make sure you don't have preeclampsia, which is a condition during pregnancy that causes high blood pressure and can even cause seizures in pregnant moms. So just to be on the safe side, she said, we're gonna send you over and just make sure everything's all right. I think my blood pressure was like 150 over 90 something, which was high for me. Usually I run in the 1-teens, like 116 over, 60 or 70. Oh, it's bright. Okay. Liam wants to make an appearance. Oh, it's okay, my love. He's not feeling well. Come here. He's naked. All right, guys, back to the story. So as this is happening, my husband is actually away. He was a few hours away doing some side jobs. We're trying to save up as much money as possible for this new baby coming. And my dad was in town. He was helping me watch my older son, Noah, who was 6, about to be 7. And so he was in town, and at this point I didn't even have a car. My husband had our truck where he was at, and I had just sold my car a few months prior so that I could have some money for when the new baby came. So I went over to labor and delivery. They hooked me up to the monitors. Everything looked good, no contractions. No, not dilated at all. My blood pressure was still high. They did blood work. Blood work came back okay. They sent me home with a jug to collect my pee for 24 hours, basically, and keep it in the fridge. I know, gross. And then bring it back the next day just to check for any protein in my urine, which could indicate that I would have preeclampsia. And the reason that they collect your urine for 24 hours is because, like, the urine sample that they get might not have protein in it, but you might excrete it at a certain time of day. So they just have you do it for 24 hours and then check the whole thing and see how much protein is in there, if there is any, to determine if you're at risk or you have preeclampsia. So, hi my love. It's okay. I know you don't feel well. Yeah, I know, baby. I know. What's that? So anyways, I went home. My dad, actually I had taken his Jeep, so I drove back to my dad's. I stayed the night there. I could not sleep that night. I just had like this weird feeling, like, I don't know, but I just knew that the next day, like, I don't know, that I was gonna have the baby. I just had a feeling. And so I went to labor and delivery the next day. My dad dropped me off with my jug of pee, and I took it up to the triage, and they hooked me up to the monitors and everything. And they said, okay, we're gonna send it to the lab. We'll just monitor you while while we wait for what the results are. We'll call your doctor with the results and then figure out a plan from there. So while I was there, my blood pressure was still high. It was like 190 over, not 190, 150 to 160 over 90. If it was 190, I would have said, oh, take this baby out now. But it wasn't 190. So they came back and they said, okay, there's no protein in your urine. So we called your doctor. She said, you know, just come to the office in the morning. But I don't know, I said, okay. I felt a little bit weird leaving, but I was okay with it. So I started getting dressed. And the nurse came back in and she said, actually, your doctor called back. She was wondering how you would feel about being induced right now. You know, because if you're continuing to have the high blood pressure, she doesn't even want to take a risk of you developing preeclampsia because it can come on very suddenly and cause seizures and a lot of issues. So, and you know what, I was really scared, but I just felt like that was the right decision at that time, was to induce labor. So within like an hour, I was set up in my room. I had my IV put in. I called my husband. I said, hey, look, I'm sorry. You got to cut that job early because we're having a baby. So my husband, you know, left and was a few hours away. I called my twin sister, my aunt, my mom, and everyone, told them that we're going to have the baby. So my son came to visit me at the hospital, and it was a little bit emotional because it was our last day when he was my only child. And I just, you know, I love him so much, and I just couldn't imagine, like, you know, I couldn't imagine life with another child, and it was, you know, an emotional for both of us, and he was just scared seeing me in the hospital with IVs and everything. But, then, so they put in my first dose of Cytotec, which is like a medication that softens your cervix. So she put that in and checked me, and I was not dilated at all, 0 centimeters. And so that was supposed to thin my cervix, and she was going to be giving that to me every 4 hours, if I remember correctly, until I got to a 3, and then they were going to start Pitocin in the IV. So right now I just was getting fluids and the Cytotec every 4 hours. She said it probably won't be until, you know, the next day, maybe mid-afternoon the next day, you know, before any action really happens. I said, okay. This was about 6 p.m. So she came in at 10, did another dose of the Cytotec. Dogs, that's enough. The dogs have been barking. And Brody, all day. So she came in, put another dose of the Cytotec, still 0 centimeters dilated. I said, oh, this is never. I was feeling like some contractions, but they weren't showing up on the monitor yet. So I figured, oh, maybe they're not really contractions. Then I think it was about 2 a.m., 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, yes, where I got my third dose of Cytotec. I had not been able to sleep. I was just super uncomfortable. So I got that dose. Right now at the hospital is my husband, my twin sister, and my aunt are all at the hospital with me, and they're sleeping. I told them, go home, guys. The baby's not going to be born till the next day. And they said, no, they're not risking missing the birth. I said, okay, fine. Are you tired, my love? Come. So after that 2 p.m. dose, I think at 3, like almost 3, like 2:30 maybe, my water broke. And I was still 0 centimeters dilated, so my water broke. Like, I remember I was just laying there in bed, and I was trying to fall asleep, and I was tossing and turning, and I couldn't sleep, but there was no contractions showing up on the monitor. I'm like, something's fishy, because I was in a lot of pain. And so I at about 2:30, 3 in the morning, my water broke all over. I just felt like a pop and water all over the bed. I woke up my husband, oh, my water broke, my water broke. He started cleaning up his bed that he was sleeping on because he knew, you know, baby's coming. So my water broke. I said, let me get up and go pee real quick before I know that I'm going to be stuck in the bed for, you know, a long time. So I got up, I peed, and when I was getting back to bed, the pain just came on, like all of a sudden, 10 out of 10 pain. I could not take that pain at all. It was like the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life, even worse than when my first son was born. Now, maybe it's just because I don't remember the pain with him that much, because it had been 7 years, but it was one of the worst pains I've ever experienced. I felt like my insides were being stabbed with a knife. Not to scare you guys, but to be honest, that's how I felt. And, you know, right when I got back in bed, this is right after my water broke, I thought I was still 0 centimeters, and I asked the nurse, I'm like, you know, how long do I have to wait for an epidural? Because, you know, I'm dying here. Like, I said, please give me anything. Like, I don't care. And she said, well, call the anesthesiologist. But, you know, I'm in a small town, so there's not, like, an anesthesiologist always in the hospital. And she said, he's on call. He's at his hotel. He will be here. We'll call him now. I said, oh, great. So he has to be here within the hour. Well, that hour was the worst hour of my entire life, and it was probably only 45 minutes. But I was dying in pain. I was screaming at my, and I never scream. I'm a quiet person. I try to like internalize my pain and just, you know, breathe through it, and I couldn't. I was like telling them, like, you know, just give me a C-section. I was in so much pain. I don't know if it was because it was my second birth or what, but it was so bad. And so by the time the anesthesiologist got there, I'm telling them, like, the lady hasn't checked me since my water broke, and she said, I'll check you, you know, after you get your epidural, so it doesn't cause you too much pain. And I'm thinking, like, oh my gosh, when the anesthesiologist, I could feel like the baby, like, trying to come out when the anesthesiologist got there. It had only been like 45 minutes since my water broke, but like, no joke, I felt the baby coming out. I went from, and the anesthesiologist is like, how dilated is she? And the nurse is like, well, she was a 0 45 minutes ago. And, you know, the monitor's not picking up my contractions. So everybody's looking, the monitor ended up being broken, but everybody's looking at me like I'm crazy, screaming in this pain, and the no contractions. But she's going based off of my contractions, that like me verbally telling her that I'm having a contraction, and the baby's heart rate, he was having some early decels, which means, like, you know, the head is coming down. And so they're trying to get me this epidural like as quick as possible, and I'm leaning over the table. You kind of have to like lean over and bend your back so that he can put the epidural in. And dogs. Brody, stop it. Brody, come here. That's enough. So I'm leaning over, and I can feel the baby's head like right there as I'm leaning over trying to get this epidural, and I'm telling the nurse, like, I promise the baby's coming out. And she's like, okay, just breathe. And the guy gave me the epidural, and I rolled on my back, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna check you. And she's like, okay, you're a 10. I'm like, what? So I basically went from a 0 to a 10 within 45 minutes to an hour, which explains why I was in like severe excruciating pain, because I wasn't getting any breaks between the contractions. I'm getting like excited talking about this because I just remember how painful it was. But she said, I need the doctor. So they had to call the doctor because it's 4:30 in the morning. When he was born at 4:30. So they called the doctor in, and she's like, okay, try not to push. And you know, and they're telling my sister the epidural's probably not going to work because she's already a 10 and all this stuff. And I just needed to get this baby out because it was an intense amount of pain. And so the doctor, I see the doctor walk in, I say, oh, thank God. You know, the end of this pain is in sight, and the epidural still hadn't kicked in yet. It had been maybe like 10 or 15 minutes. But, so I do like a few pushes, and then they start putting oxygen on me and telling me the baby's getting tired and that I need to get this baby out. And, you know, I'm a nurse, so that cues me like, oh, something's wrong, baby's in distress, the baby needs to come out right now. And once they told me that, the next push, he was born. He was born. Oh, don't hit Mama. Be nice. You're smearing lipstick all over me. And your baby Liam was born. He said, "Hi world. Hi world. It's me." And he was perfect, and they laid him on my chest. They laid him on my chest for an hour. He was 7 pounds, 7 ounces, born on 7/7/17. And that was my labor and delivery story with Liam. I had to get some stitches. I had like a 2nd-degree tear. So by the time the epidural had kicked in, they were able to give me my stitches and everything like that. But yeah, so that was my labor and delivery story with my 2nd son, Liam. Sorry for the background noise with all the dogs. Anyways, we'll see you guys later. Are you being funny? Are you being funny? Are you gonna eat my nose? Are you gonna eat my nose? You think my lips are a different color because I'm wearing lipstick? Okay, okay, be nice, be nice, be nice. Let me stop the video.